Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is brought to you in part by Mays Sandwich Shop, serving delicious hometown favorites to the West Lawn community since 1947. You are listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, bringing you the latest news and commentary on baseball.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out! The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball!
Hockey.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup! The Flyers win the Stanley Cup!
College football.
But now Blackledge is going to put it up on first down. He's going for the bundle. Garrity! Touchdown!
And the NFL.
The Denver Broncos are world champions. They have just won Super Bowl 50.
Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 218th episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting next to me, my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's good to be here tonight, and plenty to talk about. It's been a great sports weekend. I think when we take a look at your team today, that will still hold true for you. Honestly, the way the weekend has gone so far, I honestly can't really complain about the outcome, regardless of how my team does later on. So
yeah, I really couldn't have picked a way for it to go any better. The sports gods have been pretty kind to me over the last month and a half, at least. If you take out the Dolphins, even longer than that. We haven't seen Penn State lose since the end of September. We haven't seen our high school, the Wilson Bulldogs, lose since mid-September. And now my Dolphins haven't lost since early October. And I don't really know. I feel, and my dad has mentioned this because he's also a Cowboys fan, so he's even higher up on the totem pole than the Dolphins are, riding a 10-game winning streak, which we'll get to in a moment. But he says it's all going to come crashing down on one weekend. And, now I'm like, well, what's it going to be like next weekend? Because the Dolphins have the Ravens, Penn State's in the Big Ten Championship against Wisconsin, and Wilson plays a nationally ranked high school team that was, quote, a Division I factory. Dan Marino went there, by the way. I don't know.
Well, despite that, they're still a Division I factory.
So, yeah, well, if anyone is joining us on Facebook Live, hopefully this is working. We'll see if any of that is true or not, if anyone is tuning into our broadcast. Hopefully it's working. I didn't get a chance to test it in any capacity. So we may be missing a few things tonight. We won't probably do any of the contact info as I'm still tinkering around with the new system. And any new system that's also free is a positive in my book. Yes. But being able to broadcast directly to Facebook, if it works, or whenever I get it to work the way I want it to work, can only be an added bonus for us because what a huge platform that is to just be automatically in the feed without having to go to any other exterior site or anything like that. So hopefully Facebook Live is working. But yeah, so 218th episode of the show, we're going to be talking mostly NFL. Maybe we'll cover some Penn State stuff if we have time at the end. But we don't want to overlook what the Nittany Lions have done, winning 8 straight games, winning the Big Ten East Division, and making the Big Ten Conference Championship game set for Indianapolis on Saturday, where my father is attending. He's going out there with my aunt and uncle and a family friend. They're going to have a lot of fun. If they see a Penn State victory,
oh my
wow.
Gosh. They'll be losing their minds.
They will be losing their minds, and then Penn State fans will be losing their minds when they're left out of the college football playoff.
Yeah.
But that's a discussion maybe for a week from now. So Let's jump into the NFL, and obviously this being the Sunday after Thanksgiving, we have 3 Thursday games to talk about rather than your normal one. And up first at Thanksgiving lunch was the host Detroit Lions, as they have done for many, many decades now, taking on the Vikings, which the Vikings hadn't played on Thanksgiving in 21 years. I was surprised to hear that.
It's kind of hard to believe considering the Lions play
right.
all the time.
So they like to schedule those divisional games. So usually Detroit is playing someone like Minnesota, Green Bay, Chicago. But yeah, the Vikings hadn't played on Thanksgiving Day since I think it was 1995. And Minnesota has a very good record on Thanksgiving Day. I think entering this matchup, they were like 6-3 or something like that on Thanksgiving Day games. But that record would suffer a hit as they traveled to Detroit this Thanksgiving and fell to the Lions 16-13. Lions getting yet another close victory, which has just been the way Detroit has operated this season. They scored 6 points to the Vikings, 3 in the fourth quarter to nearly edge them out. I know Minnesota was winning down the stretch, but Detroit came back and snatched the victory, and now alone atop the NFC North at 7-4, one game in front of the Vikings with now the tiebreaker.
Yeah, and they beat the Vikings both times they matched up this year. I know. I'm not sure it's every single one of their wins, but I'm sure it's the majority.
I think it's 6 out of 7.
Right, 6 out of 7 wins for the Lions. They have been trailing in the fourth quarter, and obviously in their 4 losses, they were trailing in the fourth quarter at some point. So that's crazy that out of 11 games, 10 of them they were trailing in the fourth quarter at some point and are 7-4 and in first place.
Crazy to think.
Yeah, especially. Yeah, you look, Jim Caldwell was probably coaching for his job this year in Detroit, and he was able to, kind of turn things around, and they're doing really well. And there's some, instability other places. The Vikings, with all the injuries and things that they're trying to fight, trying to figure out what's going on there. We started to see the articles now coming up. I think ESPN published it. Should the Vikings regret the Sam Bradford trade? Right. Basically saying when they were 5-0, it looked like a genius move because they're like, oh man, they're all in. They might be the Super Bowl favorite. Well,
now 1-5.
Yeah, they were 5-0, and now they're 6-5. And
fighting for a playoff,
trending
spot.
In the wrong direction.
They're like the Falcons last year.
Yeah, and so you look at it as, and imagine if the Falcons if Matt Ryan was hurt and they traded for somebody else, because they gave the Eagles their first round pick for this year. So every time the Vikings lose, I'm excited because that pick's just helping moving further and further, including the Eagles are one of those losses for the Vikings.
Helping their own cause there.
Right, exactly. So, it's fun watching I love Thanksgiving Day football. It's fun now that the Lions are relevant again the last 4 or 5 years or so. It's been more fun knowing they weren't going to get trounced in that game. Yeah, and they've started things off. And this wasn't the most exciting game, but it wasn't a terrible game, and it was a close game. So it came down to the end, and the Lions won again right at the end.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about the way Detroit's been playing this year, but they're one of the teams that's proving us wrong. We didn't think Detroit would be much this year. Now, they could fall apart. They're 7-4, 3 games above 500, with 5 games to go. But the way the Packers and Vikings are playing, 9 wins could win that division.
Yeah.
The Lions could go 2-3 down the stretch and still come out on top.
Yep.
So not what we expected out of the NFC North by a long shot. Maybe a month or so ago it probably was because Green Bay was still looking like, maybe they'll probably get it together.
Right.
The Vikings were probably at that point 5-1, probably coming off the loss to the Eagles. Still okay, but man, the sky's definitely falling in Minnesota, and you're starting to hear stories like that about Sam Bradford. So the later game, or what used to be the last game on Thanksgiving, was the one hosted by the Cowboys, and they've also been doing that for a long time as well. They got to welcome in a division rival in the Washington Redskins, and a huge game in the NFC East. And in the NFC playoff picture, Washington, a little rocky earlier in the season, but it's playing really well of late. And what can you say with the Cowboys? They had won 9 in a row. Only loss coming in the season opener against the Giants, I believe, by a point, which honestly they probably could have won that game.
If the wide receiver gets out of bounds, they probably make with a field goal and probably end up winning the game.
Right. So, teams playing really well, a lot of history, huge rivalry, and a great game. It was a little rocky, a little bit lower scoring than people expected. Dallas held a 17-6 lead in the third quarter, and all of a sudden they exploded points-wise. Redskins scored 20. Cowboys only got 14, but with the lead they had built up, Dallas holds on for the victory, 31-26, to move to 10-1. Redskins dropped to 6-4-1. Dallas now swept the series with Washington, so because of the four-game lead in the win column, plus the head-to-head victory, Cowboys' real threat in the division is probably the Giants now, and Dallas has the Giants coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah, and the reason they would still be the biggest threat too is because the Giants are the Cowboys' only loss.
Right.
Like, so if the Giants could work their way into a tie, they would have, that would be basically including another Giants win over the Cowboys. That would lean towards the Giants then. But the Cowboys are just playing unbelievable right now. That offensive line is incredible, and they're playing incredible. But it's allowing the rookies to play incredible too. I don't want to make it sound like the only reason they're doing well is because of the offensive line.
That's a large part to do with it, but it's not the only reason.
But it's not like, right, I don't mean it to say like they're not doing anything. I don't want to say that anyone could be back there doing it, because I don't think that's the case. Could there be other people that are successful in this similar situation? Absolutely. But I think there are other rookie quarterbacks that could screw it up, or rookie running backs that could screw it up.
For sure.
Look, like early in the year, Elliott had an issue with ball security, fumbled a few times. Well, it hasn't happened.
No.
Like he
fixed it. He fixed the problem.
Exactly. And they talked about so like just along with those things, like they just want they're getting better. Like, the rookies aren't playing like rookies, and the line is allowing them to kind of develop, and they're looking really good right now.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, even a month ago when they were 5-1, 6-1, people were just like, don't worry, not going to happen. Well, they're at double-digit wins before December. I know people are laughing about a December collapse because that's what happens. It just feels different. There's just something about it feels different. They just have a confidence which they've earned to have about them, and the Cowboys just seem destined for bigger things. Like right now, it'd be a disappointment and even a shock if they didn't make the NFC Championship game. They technically, if they won the number one seed, they only have to win one game and they're there.
But we can still dream, right?
Well, coming from an Eagles fan, sure, I wouldn't expect anything less.
Right.
But
go Seahawks, go anyone and everyone.
We'll get to that in a bit.
I know. That took a hit this week too.
So Dallas at 10-1, 5 games left. They have a big one this week where they can really put a dent in the Vikings' playoff hopes, where they can really set them back in terms of making the playoffs. Because
we've reached the point, and this sounds terrible. Don't get me wrong, I am not rooting for the Cowboys this week. They play again on Thursday, which is kind of odd.
Because Minnesota also played on Thursday, so it's not as big a deal.
However, if you look at this, so the Cowboys are going to play the Vikings. If the Cowboys win next week, while that's typically you're like, oh, that's terrible. You're an Eagles fan. The Cowboys won. Yes, but at 6-5, the Eagles. I'm not saying the Eagles are a playoff team, but it's fun while they're still in the hunt, right?
Oh yeah,
when they're still in that third column that they always show in every network of the teams,
still in the mix.
You at least have a shot, right? So the Eagles are at 5-5 right now. They play tomorrow night. The Vikings are at 6-5, so they're another team in that mix. So like
Dallas beating Minnesota helps the Eagles,
right? That would help the Eagles. Also, the Eagles are not catching the Cowboys. They're not going to catch the Cowboys for the division. So the Eagles, if they get in, they're getting in the middle column as a wild card, which means they need those other teams in the middle and third column to lose. And so Minnesota is one of those teams. Also, another loss bumps that draft pick for Minnesota up again, and the Eagles have that first round pick, so that can be helpful too. Like, I'm not rooting for the Cowboys, but I can find benefits to the Cowboys beating Minnesota specifically.
It's usually the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but it's usually the Eagles wanting the Giants to beat the Cowboys, or not the Cowboys to beat the Vikings.
Right.
But that's the way it works. You're exactly right. Eagles should want the Cowboys to keep winning because
Well,
they're knocking other teams in front of the
Right.
Eagles
Like,
down.
well, right.
Actually, literally, quite possibly every game that Dallas plays, it would make more sense for the Eagles' rooting interest for Dallas to win then.
Right. Yeah, and and today was kind of one of the first days where it really influenced the games as I was watching, like who I was rooting for, based on I want division winners to keep winning and the other teams to lose.
Right.
Like that's basically where we're at. So like Atlanta won early. I wanted Tampa Bay to lose late because not because I want them, but because I want a clear-cut winner in the NFC South and the rest of the teams to be terrible. That's what I want. Like that's what you're rooting for so that you don't end up with lots of teams all vying for 2 spots. Now, as a football fan in general and as an NFL fan, they absolutely, they want as many teams in it as late as they can get it. Because that makes more meaningful football come Christmas time.
Well, me as a Dolphins fan, I'm in the exact same boat because the AFC is top-heavy. And then there's the AFC West that keeps winning. And then there's the Dolphins.
Which actually has the top seed right now.
Right.
How crazy is that?
I didn't realize until this past week.
Yeah,
people
they were
hyping up the Raiders as the number 1 seed. I was like, wow, that's crazy to think about. But, I mean, Miami, well, we'll get to them in a moment. Let's finish the Thursday games.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh at Indianapolis was the Thanksgiving nightcap. I know the first 2 games had higher ratings than last year, and they were both good games. Both within a touchdown, going down to the wire with historical franchises, big rivalries. Later game, if this would have been, 6 years ago? Probably would be a huge
Or even
game.
when they scheduled the game, like thinking, you probably have 2 division leaders.
Possible,
Quasi-true.
probable.
But, this had the potential to be a huge game. It was a meaningful game, but not the marquee game that the NFL.
Well, the Colts just haven't been able
NBC
to
was
do
really
anything
hoping
the
for.
last 2 years.
Right.
They were hyped up, They got Deflategate rolling. They had reached the AFC Championship game and lost that game. But since then, they've done nothing. Andrew Luck has had his weeks here and there, but he's had injury issues, didn't even play in this game. Pittsburgh, same thing. They started off pretty good, and ever since that loss to the Dolphins, and the Eagles, really, that started it. And then the Dolphins...
They were 3-0 coming into the Eagles game, I think.
Yeah.
And then 3-1.
I think they won a game, but then they lost to Miami, and since,
it just
they
kind
hit
of
a
back and
rough,
forth.
rocky
Right.
time. Well, this victory over the Colts on Thanksgiving night, 28-7, got Pittsburgh above 500 for the season to 6-5, but they're still chasing the Ravens, and it's a little bit of a surprise.
So I don't know, but the Ravens game today also was like every other Ravens game this year.
You mean Justin Tucker?
Yeah, yeah. Who had at least
350 plus field goals for sure.
Yeah,
which is
he's
just
unbelievable.
ludicrous.
And one of those, he was iced on and had to kick it again and made them both. It doesn't matter.
It does not care whatsoever. Steelers beat the Colts to move to 6-5. Colts dropped to 5-6. Not out of it because the AFC South is such a dumpster fire. But the Steelers, chasing the Ravens, needed the Bengals to pull the upset in Baltimore today. They didn't get it done, mostly because Justin Tucker was so automatic from deep, chipping in. I think he actually ended up with
They
4.
pointed out in this game, and the Bengals have had kicking problems all year with Nugent, Ohio State guy. But
Buckeyes.
The Ravens, they get, to anywhere close between 35 and 40-yard line, they're going to kick a field goal. The Bengals were getting to the same spots, in matching drives, and had to punt every time. It just was one of those things where you want to talk about. We talk about it at other levels where there's a lot more variation in kicking, but even in the NFL, we're seeing more and more variation in kicking. There's a difference between teams that have great kickers, Ravens, and teams that don't, Bengals. And that was a major difference, not necessarily the reason why this game went the way it did, but a major reason why the Ravens are able to come out on top in games like this where they don't play particularly great, but they do enough to win, and the offense is good enough. So it'll be interesting. Cincinnati's offense is really struggling without A.J. Green. To be fair, they weren't lighting the world on fire with A.J. Green. They were inconsistent at best.
Yeah.
They had a higher high with A.J. Green. Now that ceiling has dropped a lot,
Yep.
which makes the inconsistencies more like it makes it
prevalent,
worse.
yeah.
Right? Yeah. So
Well, the Ravens have the tiebreaker with the Steelers. They're both 6-5, but Baltimore beat Pittsburgh back on November 6th, 21-14 in Baltimore. So Baltimore still has to travel to Pittsburgh. And looking at the Ravens' schedule,
Christmas Day, they
it
go
is
to Heinz Field.
it is not an easy schedule for the
No.
Ravens down the stretch. They host Miami this week, which is huge because
Huge game.
if Baltimore doesn't win the NFC North, that's a wild card tiebreaker right there. Then they have to go to New England, which how often do the Patriots lose at home?
And that's a Monday night game.
Then they host the Eagles on my birthday, who will be playing for their own wild card spot in the NFC.
And honestly, well, the Eagles and Cincinnati are probably the two weakest teams they have left on their schedule, and neither of those are pushover teams.
No, none of these they could honestly go 5-0 or 0-5. Well, they could honestly go 4-1 or 0-5 because they're not beating New England in New England, so that's not happening.
Yeah,
Although Baltimore's one of the teams that always had thorn in their side, so maybe.
Who knows?
But after that game on December 18th, December 25th, Christmas, you mentioned Pittsburgh hosts Baltimore, and then Baltimore has to go to Cincinnati. Now, I know they just beat Cincinnati. Cincinnati's struggling, but it's a rivalry game, and Cincinnati could possibly kick Baltimore out of the playoffs altogether or change who wins the NFC North on New Year's Day.
Right, yeah.
So Baltimore definitely has an interesting schedule the rest of the way. All right, Rams, Saints. Not a lot of bearing on this, but the Saints unloaded.
Up 21 in the fourth quarter, running trick plays. And it's no coincidence, and they brought it up multiple times on the broadcast, that the Rams defensive coordinator, Greg Williams, is the guy who basically got the Saints in trouble for Bountygate.
Yeah.
And made Sean Payton sit out. He didn't make Sean Payton, but his actions were what caused the problems in New Orleans years ago. And now they might have been making a bigger deal out of it than the team was, but you don't often see NFL teams running trick plays up 21 in the fourth quarter.
No, doesn't happen all that often.
But at the same time, whatever. Drew Brees played lights out today. I think 5 total touchdowns, 4 passing touchdowns. So he, it was pretty interesting.
So Saints get the win 49-21. Elsewhere in the NFC South, the Falcons host the Cardinals, and they got a blowout victory, 38-19. The Falcons beat the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are another team struggling
Major
right now.
disappointment this year.
For sure, and I'm glad because the Dolphins still get to play them. Speaking of my Dolphins, they held on for a victory over the 49ers, 31-24. This is their 6th consecutive victory.
I'm sure you saw the last play of the game.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, that was crazy.
So a lot going on, and a lot of political ramifications in the game.
Yeah,
that
really.
It's just crazy to think about. Well, the timing is just absurd.
Right, because I don't think there was...
Just to be playing in Miami the few days after this happened, and then...
And, like, I don't know. To talk just quickly, not to get into it a whole lot, but I don't really know what was said, but I know Kaepernick wore a Castro shirt earlier
over
this
the
week.
summer. I think it was over the summer. It was in like August.
See, I thought it was this week.
No,
but obviously he was asked about it this week, and then
he basically gave him tepid support and basically said he's not as bad a guy as people make him out to be, which obviously made Cuban Americans like want to jump through their TV screens or radios and strangle the guy,
which is not going to hit home more anywhere
than Miami.
Than Miami. So they're playing in Miami this week. So that's crazy.
Literally like 2 days after this happened, a day after this happens.
And then Castro dies. Like, it's just insane. It's insane.
Yeah, it's what an interesting chain of events unfolding here, and then of course when he gets introduced, he gets a pretty large course of booze, and this is on top of all the stuff going on with his
and then
kneeling protests.
The end of the game, he's running, and it was. I had flashbacks after the fact of like the Tony Romo drop snap in Seattle, where I was like, yes, no, because I thought he was going to run it in.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, oh my gosh, they don't have a shot, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going to run it in for a touchdown. And then Ndamukong Suh just
pops up.
Not out of nowhere. He was hustling down the line. Like, he was doing exactly what he's supposed to do. You know, don't chase him back, especially a guy like Kaepernick.
Meet him.
You just have to keep him
to
from
the
getting
angle.
to the end zone, and he certainly did.
Yes, he did.
I thought he broke him in half.
That stadium would have erupted.
You would have heard a loud cheer because they won the game, and then an even louder cheer
because Colin Kaepernick
and then
was ended.
the announcers would have brought up how the Eagles fans cheered when Michael Irvin got hurt, like, because that's just the way it works.
Totally.
But anyway, regardless of how the win went down this week or even last week, if you want to go back to the Dolphins, 10 straight punts and then touchdown to win the game.
Nuts.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just like we talked about with the Lions earlier, they're winning games, and that's a good win. You know, this is a game that the Dolphins have lost how many years, like your entire life. Like, I don't mean that in a bad way, but like, this is the game they lose, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
this is the game.
Almost
that they
every
lose.
game that they've won over the last 6 weeks, they probably should have lost.
Right.
There's not
Like,
too many
and these are the games where, like, last year, like at the end of last year, when we're looking back and we're like, oh man, they really should have been 9-7 or 10-6, and you're looking
They're
at
getting
where it
the
goes
wins
wrong.
now.
Like, these are the games where that happens.
Well,
and like you said, it's a couple plays, switch that around, and that's the difference between being 7-4 and right in the mix in the AFC and being 4-7 and out of the mix in the AFC.
But early in the season, that wasn't happening. They
right.
could have, maybe should have beaten the Seahawks. They possibly could have beaten the Patriots in New England. Didn't get either of those done. Now, I know Brady wasn't there, but they
all the more reason why they probably should have gotten that.
Easily could have won those first two games. But they probably maybe shouldn't have won the Browns game.
Right.
Now, the Pittsburgh game, they looked pretty good, and that didn't come down to the end. But they easily could have lost the Buffalo game. They easily could have lost the Jets game. They easily could have lost the Chargers game.
They
easily could have lost the Rams game.
Honestly,
they easily could have lost today.
The Cincinnati game. Like,
yeah, that's just
But
bad.
that was a Thursday night game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Thursday night road games, that's tough. The Tennessee loss, while not great, Tennessee's better than a lot of people thought.
I was ready to throw in the towel after that one. I was like, they're done.
Right, and
it's
then
October
they come back
16th
and they beat the Steelers the next week.
It's October 9th and they're done, and then they beat the Steelers.
You're not going to let me, like, you're not going to let this die off. And then they beat the Bills, you know, like, so then, you know, oh my gosh. Because I remember after that loss to Cincinnati, or after the loss, to Tennessee,
Titans, yeah.
You're like, well, they've got to beat the Steelers and the Bills, and they're probably not going to. Well, they won both those games, and then
now they've won 4 more since then.
Right, so it's just crazy.
Yeah, I believe they're still the 7th seed in the AFC, which doesn't take math major to figure out. They only take 6 teams. So.
Yeah, but it's going all right. Like, they have the tiebreaker over the Steelers, which is huge. They have, as of now, a tiebreaker over the Bills, which would be nice.
Chargers and Jets, too.
Right, Chargers and Jets. So they have a lot of divisional wins, and conference wins. Sorry, like that's going to benefit them.
Yeah,
let me phrase that. Has the potential to benefit them down the stretch.
Man, if they would have won that Tennessee game, but they weren't really in it.
No. I'm telling you, the Cincinnati one, but that's a Thursday night game on the road.
They have to win this week. The one at Baltimore is huge.
That's a huge one.
It's a huge game.
And
this
as crazy as it is,
Conference
Arizona
game,
is a team they should beat,
team.
But it's an NFC team. So honestly, if they were going to lose one, Arizona is the one to lose. Because an NFC team, while, that's a team that you should beat, you still have your 3 divisional games to close it out. You have it in your control, basically.
And the 3 biggest games, the ones that matter, are all on the road. At Baltimore, at the Jets, and at Buffalo. Now, they host the Patriots, but that may mean nothing to New England and may mean everything to Miami.
On the other hand, as of right now, New England may be battling for that number 1 seed.
Depends on how the Raiders finish.
Right.
So
how crazy would that be?
Yeah.
That can't happen.
We got to bring up the Tuck rule, right? So not helping the Dolphins in any way were the Jaguars, who were flying around on defense, playing really well. They led 7-6 at halftime, but the Jags offense just can't get much going. They got to 21. Awful. They scored 14 in the second half, but Jacksonville defense couldn't keep it up and gave up 22. Buffalo wins that one 28-21. And disappointing year for Jacksonville for sure.
Yeah, I think changes are.
Well, we already saw some.
This isn't breaking news.
Greg Olson's gone.
Right, it's not breaking news. The owner said over the summer it's playoffs or bust this year. Well, it's bust. They're not going to make the playoffs, so we'll see. The Bills, on the other hand, are right in the thick of things.
Right. Well, Miami needs to end them in a few weeks. Titans, Bears. This one was a little bit closer than I expected.
Yeah.
Tennessee was winning 21-7 at halftime, but Chicago fought back in the fourth quarter to cut it, but Tennessee ended up to hold on to win 27-21. Marcus Mariota, another good, solid day from him.
He's playing really well.
Their loss last week, a little bit disappointing to the Colts. That one, if they would have beaten Indianapolis last week, they'd be right there. I mean, they're still there, but that game last week against the Colts, that one could end up hurting their chances. Tennessee has something building, though. If they can get a reprise from Mariota in his third year and DeMarco Murray, Derrick Henry next year.
Derrick Henry started. He
finally
looked good today
after he was stashed on our bench for how long?
Yeah.
So Titans over the Bears 27-21. Giants got the bye week off against the Browns 27-13. I don't have too much to add about that, except that it's been almost a year since Cleveland last won a game.
And
the starting quarterback was Johnny Manziel.
We've reached the point where I kind of was in the boat where the Browns have to win a game, right? Like, they have to win a game, right? Like, no one's going
said that
0-16.
about the Lions.
I really don't know that they're going to win a game. And did you see the Falcons trolled the Browns today on Twitter?
Yeah, about Taylor Gabriel.
Yeah. So, not that Gabriel would be the difference in Cleveland right now.
No.
But unless he could play quarterback, which, honestly, at Cleveland, he probably could play quarterback.
The best news for the Browns is they can't lose next week. Although
say that.
there'll be
They'll
plenty of
find a
NFL memes going around about the Browns losing their bye week. But where it matters, and the real deal, Cleveland is on a bye next week. They cannot lose. They then get to host Cincinnati. Shouldn't win, but could win. They then go to Buffalo. I'd probably say the same thing. Probably won't win, but could win. They then host the Chargers. Again,
chance.
Then they go to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh will be playing for something. There's no chance they win on New Year's Day.
For a long time, at the beginning of the season, I was saying that's their chance. Because Steelers are going to have it locked up. Well, they're not. They're not going to have it locked up.
Baltimore
they're going to be playing for something. So that
they
last
have
game is
3
going
weeks
to
to
mean
do
something
it.
to
They
Pittsburgh.
won't be favored in any of the four.
No.
Easily.
No
way that's happening at all. Speaking of the Chargers, they went to Houston today and got a very, very meaningful road victory over the Texans.
And it's a big loss for the Texans.
It is. They needed to pick up ground or maintain with the Titans in the AFC South, or even pick up on the Colts, who fell to the Steelers on Thanksgiving, and they couldn't do it. San Diego able to get the victory. I don't think there's much hope for them because of how strong the AFC West is and who they have also lost to, including the Dolphins. But San Diego getting it done on the road.
Would you consider O'Brien on the hot seat if they do not make the playoffs this year?
He probably shouldn't be because, well, they were in the playoffs last year.
Right. So it's a step back with a $70 million quarterback.
But
I'm not saying.
But I thought we were told that he had nothing to do with that.
I agree. Which
means
mean all the
that
more reason
the Texans ownership should be firing the general manager.
I agree.
Or whoever
who O'Brien is on the record. They don't get along.
Right.
So I don't know. It's a possibility. But let's just put it this way to tie into Penn State. 3 years ago, after O'Brien was leaving, who would have thought that sitting there now, 3 years removed from those seasons, that O'Brien would be the one who's possibly... Now, I say that. It's 2 months removed from Franklin, quote-unquote, on the hot seat. But,
right.
Franklin's the one who is, supposedly in talks about getting an extension right now. And O'Brien's the one where, I don't know. But if they don't make the playoffs, there's definitely going to be questions about it.
Right.
It's definitely going to be a topic. Whether it's has any legs or not, who knows? But, it'll definitely be something that people are talking about, especially in Houston, if they don't make the playoffs. Because they've made the playoffs to not make the playoffs. I think basically what's going to happen is ownership's going to have to decide. Are we in on the GM or are we in on the coach?
Right. The Texans are 6-5, 5 games to go. They have to travel on the road the next 2 weeks to Green Bay and Indianapolis. Those are toss-ups. They then have to host Jacksonville and Cincinnati before ending the season at Tennessee, which could be the AFC South Championship.
I kind of hope it is.
Yeah, I do too.
Just for fun.
I do too. So 2 toss-ups, at least one they should win. You could even say that about the Bengals too, that they should win that game.
Well, if they're a playoff team,
that's a game they need to win. So
really, the only game that I would
they
say
need to go 3-1 in their next 4, and then make the Tennessee game matter because they'll be 9-6, and then Tennessee will probably be around that as well. They might be even a game worse. Tennessee could be sitting there at 8-7, and whoever wins is the AFC South champ. Because,
man, I hope it is. I hope it's a winner take all, winners and losers done. It's basically an extra playoff game. Like that's.
Because now Houston won the first matchup, so if it's in the exact scenario I said, it would come down to conference tiebreaker then.
Right.
Or does it go to divisional record first?
I don't know. It's weird. That's the only thing I remember is that it's weird. It's not necessarily what you would think.
Well, I know head-to-head's first. I'm pretty sure head-to-head's first.
Right, but then I think it's division, or I think it's conference record, not divisional record.
Okay, so stay tuned with that. Houston, Tennessee could be coming down to the wire. Oh boy, this one didn't help you in the Cowboys not being the number one seed. What's going on with the Buccaneers all of a sudden?
See,
they're coming together in front of our eyes.
Like, forget the number one seed. I'm just looking at teams that can beat the Cowboys in the playoffs. And the Seahawks...
They play like today.
Right.
Are
definitely one of those teams, but not if they play like they did today. Like you said, this
was
terrible.
a double whammy for you as an Eagles fan. Because a wild card team doesn't lose, and a team that you want to beat the Cowboys looks embarrassing.
Right. They were terrible. Didn't score. An offensive touchdown. Didn't score a touchdown at all. And we're kind of lucky to hold Tampa to 14 points. It was just a weird game.
I'm glad both touchdowns went to Mike Evans.
Yes, that helped. But again, it was just, I don't know. Seattle looked like they did earlier in the season. Like they regressed a lot in this game. And Tampa is basically, I think they're tied with Atlanta right now, right?
No, I think, isn't Atlanta 7-4?
They could be. But I think, I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, Atlanta's 7-4.
Atlanta's 7-4, but Tampa's right there behind them. And
Atlanta,
split. Right, Tampa beat Atlanta the first game of the season, and then
so once again, it come down to conference record, divisional record, tiebreakers.
And that win over Seattle could be huge because Atlanta lost to Seattle on a controversial no call on the pass interference.
So there's another tight race towards the end.
Right, yeah. So
the Buccaneers go to San Diego, host the Saints, travel to Dallas and the Saints again before finishing with Carolina.
Yeah.
Not an easy road
for
the Buccaneers.
But they're playing better.
Hey, they got the win at home 14-5.
Right.
And then one that came down to the wire, the Patriots, as they usually do, come out on top over the Jets 22-17, and Tom Brady gets his 200th win as NFL quarterback, tying Peyton Manning for number one all time.
Right.
New England just trying to keep pace with those Raiders, man.
Yeah, and
who would have thought you'd be saying that?
Exactly. Patriots, this game, you could see this coming from a mile away. The Jets are up 3-0 after the first quarter.
Tied 10 at half.
Tied 10 at half, and there's no way the Jets win this game. Then
they go up 17-13, though. You're thinking...
No, they go up 17-13, and you're thinking there's no way they win this game. They're the Jets. They're playing the Patriots. That's just not how this works. And like you said, the Patriots trying to keep pace with the Raiders because the Raiders, in thrilling fashion...
Yeah, 11 points in the fourth. Matt McGloin got in today.
Yeah, he did.
Derek Carr hurt his hand.
Yeah, did you see his pinky? That was
gnarly.
Gross, yeah.
But hey, Derek Carr and the Raiders, just win, baby. They got it done. 35-32 over Carolina, and Carolina's playoff hopes are gone.
Yeah, especially because they're probably the worst team in their division right now, record-wise.
Yeah, I mean, head-to-head, you might say otherwise, but they haven't gotten done against other teams.
Right, because the Saints are playing better than they were at points this year. And so, in Tampa, we just talked about, and Atlanta's still in first place.
Let's take a look at the AFC's number one seed, the 9-2 Oakland Raiders. What do they have over the last 5 weeks? Well, I'm going to tell you, there are going to be some doozies in here. They have host Buffalo next week. They might get
some flex Sunday night games at this point, too.
Yeah, for sure. They host Buffalo this week. With the way they're playing, that should be a win. They're at home where they've actually kind of struggled this year. But then they go to Kansas City, already a primetime game.
Wow, that's going to be a massive game.
Then they go to San Diego the next week before hosting Indianapolis, but finishing New Year's Day in Denver.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
So they've got a kind of a gauntlet run here.
Oakland beat San Diego earlier.
So they're done with their home divisional games.
Yeah, and they beat Denver, but they lost to Kansas City at home.
Yeah. So
Oakland beat San Diego at home. Oakland beat Denver at home, but they lost to Kansas City. So The Kansas City one on December 8th is huge. That's a Thursday night game. Wow, what a game on Thursday night. That has the chance of being the best Thursday night game of the season.
Yeah.
Not counting some of the Thanksgiving Day games. Yeah. But Oakland at Kansas City, Thursday, December 8th. That one will go a lot in determining the AFC playoff picture. And hey, for me as a Dolphins fan, go Oakland.
Yeah, separate yourself, right? Win the games, and man, it is exciting to see them good again. And they've got so much young talent. Like
Khalil Mack, Derek Carr, Latavius Murray. Crabtree's he's not that old, and I know he's in San Francisco first, but the receiver from Amari Cooper, like it's crazy to think about. So, speaking of some AFC West teams, two others in a huge game just kicked off on Sunday Night Football. Chiefs at Broncos. Both of them for this is a must-win to keep pace with Oakland. One of the teams, barring the third tie of the season,
so if the Broncos
is going to be a game behind.
If the Broncos
two games
lose,
behind.
The Dolphins move into the 6th spot.
Really?
Yeah, they were explaining this on Red Zone.
Miami must have a better conference record.
Yeah, something like if the Chiefs win, the Broncos are in 7th spot.
I mean, I guess, Miami doesn't play either team, so there will never be a head-to-head tiebreaker. It'll all come down to conference record. So that's why I thought when determining a divisional champ, I thought it was head-to-head division conference. But determining wild card, it was head-to-head conference.
That might be.
That would make sense to me. I don't know why in intra-division, when you're trying to determine division champ, why you would jump to conference before division.
Yeah, I don't know. I just remember that tie-breaking things are awfully weird sometimes.
Well, you kind of think like when you're determining a division championship, like in high school football, if you go 0-3 but win 7, like using Lancaster 11 League Section 1 as the example, if Wilson would go 0-3 in non-league but go 7-0 in league, 7-3, and another team goes 2-1 in non-league but 6-1 with their only loss to Wilson, so they're 8-2, but because their loss was to Wilson is the league champ despite a worse record because the league games are what matters.
Well, just look at Penn State.
Right.
Like Penn State only has one league loss.
Right. Whereas Michigan has 2.
Michigan has 2, and Ohio State has 1, but Penn State has the head-to-head.
But what I'm saying is when you look at the
NFL, it's
the
not
NFL doesn't care about that at all.
No.
Like there's a divisional champ, but it's straight. They don't care what your divisional record was.
Right.
If you went 0-6 in the division, but 10-0,
that would be
division
nuts.
Champ. I mean, that'd be tough to do.
Right. And still have those other teams not finish.
Yeah, have them be 9-7 or 8-8 or whatever.
Can you imagine?
That'd be I wonder what is like the division champ that's had the worst division record. I'm sure there's a team that's gone 2-4.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's had to be 3-3 teams. Like that's probably a fairly common occurrence.
Yeah.
But imagine someone who went 1-5 or 2-4 and winning the division. That you won your other games, but you couldn't win the division. So Chiefs Broncos, huge game on Sunday Night Football. So tune into NBC for some great action. They're in the second quarter, and it's still 0-0. So which quarterback's going to make fewer mistakes? My money would be on Alex Smith because that's who he's been his entire career.
He has more experience making.
But the Broncos and Trevor Siemian, I mean, he's looked good at times,
Right.
but they're a quarterback away from being great, which is what I said when I did the preview and I bashed on the Broncos. Now they're making me look bad because they're 7-3 and I had them going between 7-9 and 9-7.
Should they trade in this offseason? Should they trade for Tony Romo?
Yeah, I think they do.
So I heard people talking today. They think the Cowboys get a number 1 for Tony Romo. I don't think so.
Oh, I don't think
they
so.
do.
I
think, but they were like, Eagles got a number 1 for Sam Bradford. Yeah, but the Vikings were stupid. And if you read,
well, Sam Bradford is also younger and healthier,
right? And if you,
which is crazy to think of.
Yeah, but if you read like Peter King's like how that trade went down, like basically Roseman like couldn't believe that they offered a number 1, like. And that's why they traded Sam Bradford.
When it came through,
they had
our text messages, the list between all of us, we're just dying, laughing, talking
works
about
out
it.
because they got the next great quarterback. So,
so Monday night, your team takes on the reeling Packers, who are 4-6 and on the outside looking in for everything.
Yeah, everybody's like, "Oh, the Eagles need a win. Good thing the Packers are coming." I'm like, "No, I kind of agree with the other.
Needs the win.
The Packers need the win." And they're probably happy to see the Eagles.
If the Eagles want to keep pace with the likes of the Buccaneers,
they
got to win. Dropping to 5-6.
This is a huge game for both teams.
That's tough. Yeah, well, whoever wins is still in the playoff picture. Whoever loses, it gets a lot more tough.
Oh yeah,
a lot more tough.
Oh yeah.
Eagles would be under 500. Packers would be even farther under, down to 4-7. That would 4-7.
They're
One more
in trouble.
loss and you can't. 500 is the best you can go. Eagles at 5-6, just with knowing what's in front of them in the NFC East.
Hey,
who are you going to catch?
So they're 5-5. They're last place in their division. They'd be first place. Well, coming into the week, they would have been first place in the AFC North.
Yeah,
5-5.
Yeah,
So
crazy. So that is your NFL Week 12. Before we go, just a few mentions on Penn State. What's going on. So they entered the day yesterday, needing to see Ohio State beat Michigan if Penn State wanted to have the chance to go to Indianapolis and play for the Big Ten title. And for a long time, it didn't think that was going to happen.
no, Ohio State looked awful.
The kicker missed 2 easy field goals. He had been perfect on the season. And then some officiating mishaps along the way that people will argue definitely favored the Buckeyes. It was at Ohio State,
Which is funny because I read an article a week and a half ago talking about how the conspiracy theories would be out if Ohio State got jobbed in this and Michigan won, because they thought that would be the scenario that Michigan still goes to the Big Ten championship. Michigan and Ohio State could both make the playoff, but this way, I don't know. I don't see Michigan and Ohio State both making it, but I wouldn't say it's out of the question, because it was a double overtime loss,
right?
And because of those things, and Harbaugh going off the deep end, and
we could do an entire show about this, but the hypocrisy that comes about when it comes to these playoff decisions is just maddening, because people want to say, oh, well, they only lost to Ohio State in overtime. Well, Penn State didn't lose to Ohio State. They beat Ohio State.
Right.
Then they'll say, well, Michigan beat Penn State. Yeah, 8 weeks ago.
Right, with fifth-string walk-on linebackers.
Yeah, literally no scholarship linebackers.
They talk about injuries at other places.
Why does it count for one team but not for another?
If you want to talk about bad calls, how about Ben Smith getting kicked out of the Penn State game, and then the Big Ten officials basically...
Brandon Smith.
Yeah, sorry, Brandon Smith coming back and saying afterwards, it was a bad call.
Stupid call.
All right, yeah, so I don't want to hear it about bad calls in, Michigan, or, I don't want to hear it. They gave that game away. They gave it away. They gave that game away. Did they have some close calls not go their way down the stretch? Yes. But that happens to every team, and they gave the game away. The quarterback threw a pick six, threw another interception that set Ohio State up at Michigan's 15, and fumbled inside the 5 going in for a touchdown. Maybe you shouldn't have lost that. Or maybe you don't lose at Iowa, who is terrible this year.
I'm resigned to the fact that Penn State, even if they beat Wisconsin, isn't going to make the playoffs.
No, they're not.
Because
and they have 2 losses. So, it's frustrating, but, okay,
it would be incredibly infuriating, though, if one of Clemson or Washington would lose in their championship games, and it's Alabama, Ohio State, and then they pick Michigan to go in.
That would be furious. If they pick the second and third place teams from our division and not
the champion.
Right. And now, I think it becomes
interesting. Lost since the end of September.
It becomes interesting if Wisconsin, hope they don't win, but if Wisconsin were to win, because
Wisconsin lost to both of them.
They lost to both of them. Right. So, then, Ohio State, I think, has
it's interesting because right now the CFP standings are not out. They are Tuesday night.
And it's weird because they were emphasizing today, the people were emphasizing, that they, AP and coaches, it's all kind of relative week to week. They use, where were they last week, who they beat, they said, in theory, and they've been told repeatedly that that's not how it works. Every week, the playoff committee gets together and it's this is how we rank them this week, stand alone from last week.
Well, that's why we've seen Penn State just creep up.
Right.
It was a shock when they came in at 11 or whatever it was.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
The first ratings that came out, because Penn State was barely in the top 25, and the CFP.
I'll be honest,
I
was watching it and I figured they weren't in it. I was like, man, we're ranked in the AP and coaches poll, but we're out of the playoff. Oh well.
And then you're
at 12, and I'm like,
12, whatever
it
was.
crap, I couldn't believe it.
But now we're only up to 8 after all the chaos that's
Right.
happened in front. It's like people aren't buying into it now, or they don't want to believe
But I
in
look
it,
at
or
it
there's
as-
still politics
I look at it
about
as
things from
we
5
have-
years ago
we have a
playing
chance,
on people's minds.
We have a chance to beat a team ahead of us yet in the for a
Right.
conference champion, and we would have won the best conference in college football this year. The best division in the best conference in college football this year.
Right.
There's nothing else you could really do.
That like, I wouldn't be mad if Penn State gets left out as long as Michigan doesn't get in.
If Ohio State's the team that makes it over them, they have one loss
on
I
in
hate
the
to say
road at the best stadium in college football.
Right. I can't.
I'm not
can't
mad
really
about
argue
that. Penn State shouldn't have lost to Pitt. If you don't
Right.
lose to Pitt, you're not in that situation.
Right.
They're a one-loss
Exactly.
team.
Exactly. And or even if Pitt's better, like how did Pitt lose 4 games this year?
Who knows?
I know because they're Pitt. That's
Yeah,
why.
Pitt. Let's on our
Wah,
first
wah.
Facebook show, we just have Pitt fans coming after us as we make fun of them. That's okay. I can take it. I got so many things to say to them. But anyways, all right. So I think that's everything. We're gonna wrap up here. Thanks for joining us on our first live show. Sorry we didn't do any contact info, texts, calls, emails. You can get a whole ton of information on the show at jmnjrradio.com. And I have no idea when Justin and I will be back here. We still have a Bulldog Hour to do, at least one. But we're probably going to take a holiday break because of the way the holidays are set up this year. Everything's on a Sunday, and I don't think we'll be broadcasting on Christmas Day or New Year's Day.
I already kind of put that in the schedule.
Oh, did you? Well, you should just do a 24-hour event from the day before, like noon Christmas Eve to noon Christmas Day, and then the same thing New Year's Eve to New Year's
I mean,
Day.
what could possibly go wrong?
Nothing.
On the other hand, Christmases in the future would probably be wide open.
Yeah,
at
true.
that
We
point.
probably wouldn't have anything to have to do the next few years. So you gotta always plan for the future. So if we mess up now, then the calendar's wide open. So
It would be wide open.
wide open.
Because we'd be dead.
So you may not hear from us until January, which is crazy to think about. Here we're sitting in November, but you probably won't hear from us until January 8th, which we'll be talking about
Be
the
plenty of
wild
football
card
to talk about.
playoffs
And Penn State's college football playoff.
the national
Okay.
championship
Yeah,
game
yeah.
that clearly they'll be in. Because why not? Because
We're-
why not?
We're the team to upset Alabama. My heart would explode. Like,
Yeah, I
literally.
know.
That's not a figurative statement.
Miami
My heart
runs the
would
table
explode.
and goes 12-4. Wilson upsets Central Catholic and goes to the state title game. Penn State goes to play Alabama. Let's not even talk about it. It's just out there. It's just crazy. Although I've been saying that I think for the last 4 to 6 weeks, and
Yeah.
nothing has happened. So
Now we can cross section this into a we can count this as fan fiction.
sure, absolutely. Why not? I'm all for it. All right. Well, since we may not be around broadcasting around the holidays, we'll hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. Hope everyone has a great holiday season. An early Christmas greetings. Have a happy New Year, and we'll talk to everyone in 2017.
All right, sounds good.
All right. For Justin Raffoff, I'm Joe Mays. This was episode 218 of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. We'll see you in 2017 for episode 219.
Thanks for listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. Tune in every Sunday for the latest sports discussions from Joe and Justin. Each episode is available live on Ustream or Mixler and can be downloaded or streamed on iTunes and SoundCloud. You can interact with Joe and Justin on Facebook and Twitter, and stay up to date with the guys at joemaysandjraff.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is part of the JMNJR Radio Network. For more info, visit jmnjrradio.com.